Hello and welcome to my shop. Today's video is going to be comparing two mid-market low-angle block planes. First is Stanley's Sweetheart 60 1/2 block plane, and the other is WoodRiver's low-angle block plane. Let's zoom in. Let's start easy. Let's talk about things that are the same or almost the same between these two planes. The WoodRiver is just a little bit longer, perhaps 1/2 of an inch, whereas the Sweetheart is maybe 1/8 of an inch wider. Both accept a blade that is 1 5/8 inch wide, and the weight is about the same as well. The Sweetheart weighs in at 33 ounces, whereas the WoodRiver low-angle block plane weighs in at 31 ounces. Very small difference. Both have an adjustable mouth with the exact same lever arm adjustment mechanism, and both control the depth of cut via a knob in back. Now let's go to where they're not different. The most obvious thing to me is the price. The WoodRiver plane sells for $100 American, and the Stanley plane retails for only $65. That's a pretty big difference. The second biggest difference, as you can see, is going to be how both of these planes lock down their blade. The WoodRiver uses a lever cap system. So all you do is pop this little guy up, boop, and now you have access to the blade. Also, if you choose to, you can adjust the blade by using the lever cap. You could pop it open, adjust, pop it back down. Now, the Stanley uses the thumb wheel style, where you loosen it in order to take the top cap off, and tighten it back down. Next biggest difference is going to be lateral adjustment of the blade. The Stanley has a Norris style lateral adjuster, so that means that this knob in back, which you use to control depth of cut, serves two purposes. Yet also, by wiggling it back and forth, by moving it back and forth rather, you change the angle of the blade within the body. That's how you control lateral adjustment. Conversely, the WoodRiver plane has zero lateral adjustment. Very disappointing. I'll show you how this guy works. Let me pop the cap off. So here's the blade. So the ladder, or the depth adjuster, simply move these little fingers up and down, which grip into these slots in the blade, and that's it. This doesn't move back and forth. So your lateral adjustment is either going to be one of two ways. You will loosen the cap iron and move it with your meaty, imprecise fingers, or, as I've taken to sometimes doing, which is sort of inconvenient, but I will lock the blade down, and then I'll tap on it using a convenient hunk of metal like my burnisher here, sort of as you would do with a wooden bodied plane. So, and one issue I find with the lever cap system is that when you pop it off, the blade tends to move around. Just by nature of the spring action, the blade tends to jiggle and be jostled. So if you're trying to fine-tune that lateral adjustment by loosening, or by means of loosening the lever cap, it's very frustrating, because to get a nice even cut all the way around, we're talking about very, very minute adjustments here, and it's inevitable that as you move this up and down, that the blade will be wiggled. So as you can see, just by kind of playing with this thing while rambling on here, as I opened lever cap, it fell forward, which is the position where you can take it off. But by doing so, the whole mechanism is wobbling and wiggling around now, letting the blade move around. And so that's the reason I tend to use I laterally adjust the blade while it's in place. Let's spend a minute talking about the blades themselves. Nearest to me is the Stanley Sweetheart blade, and this is the WoodRiver blade. So my first complaint is going to be on the flatness of the WoodRiver blade. This thing was pretty bad for a block plane that cost $100. Oh boy, they had a fairly significant bow in it this way. I kept flattening and flattening and flattening this upper area, and there's always at the corners some low spots. In fact, there still is a very, very small low spot, which will eventually come out. I eventually took this thing to my bench grinder and took off maybe a 1/16 of the bevel just to get down to some flatter steel. Really frustrating. I bought the Stanley a couple years ago, and I don't precisely remember how flat or unflat the back of the blade was. Well, it shows a fair bit of work that I done in here to get it flat. So one could assume that it wasn't perfect. Now, as the material, the Stanley is made out of A2 tool steel, and I actually do not know what the WoodRiver blade is made out of. I couldn't find that on their website. But I will say that in doing some end grain planing, they seem to wear with about the same rate. I put a piece of Paduke on my shooting board, and I tried to shoot the end, and that little piece of Paduke kicked the crap out of both of these blades. Both of these developed some pretty significant rollover after a few strokes in that Paduke, so they seem to have fairly similar characteristics. On to more subjective things. So which plane do I prefer? In terms of feel and hand, I much prefer the WoodRiver. And for me, that's because its hump back here is higher than the Sweetheart's. If I can move these around for you, you can possibly see the difference. So here's a pencil held level, and you can see that the Sweetheart's a little bit lower. And so I have a little bit larger than average hand, so with this higher hump, it just feels better in my palm because it reaches up to conform and fill my hand. I feel that these two planes, when equally sharpened and equally tuned up, can take equal shavings. But I just seem to have an easier time of taking end grain shavings with the WoodRiver, maybe just because it fits a little bit better in my hand. But everyone on Earth is going to have a different opinion of that, so if you can, get your paws in these things before you plunk down some cash on them. Otherwise, in terms of usability, it's a wash. I dislike the wheel lock system because with this particular plane, I find that I need to loosen it before I do any adjustments, either depth or lateral, and I just find that to be a nuisance. I've been unable to do adjustments with the wheel locked. The blade just kind of binds in here. I really don't know what's up with that. It might just be a dud. Whereas with the WoodRiver, I am able to make depth adjustments with the blade locked in place. Same with lateral adjustments. So that's a win in my book. It works just like a standard bench plane, where once you lock the blade in, you can still adjust it. So which one should you pick? Well, you had a big price difference to fuel your decision, 65 versus 100. The WoodRiver possibly might look nicer. It's shiny, and you might prefer the lever cap system. But just keep in mind that the WoodRiver does not have lateral adjustment, whereas the Sweetheart does. So I hope that I've given you enough pieces of data and a close enough look where you can make that decision a little bit better by yourself. Well, I hope this comparison was useful to you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and thanks for watching.